Right now, you are experiencing something. There is something it is like to hear these words, something it is like to read them, a quality to the sound, to the light, to the sensation of being the person that you are, thinking the thoughts you are thinking. We have no scientific explanation for this, not an incomplete one, not a work in progress. We have no explanation at all for why the physical processes in your brain produce an inner life, why they feel like something rather than just happening in the dark. This is not a gap in neuroscience that more research will fill. It is a gap that some of the most serious philosophers and scientists alive believe may require a fundamental rethinking of what we think reality is. Here is what we know, and here is what we don't. Actually Science. Episode 7. The Hard Problem of Consciousness. The misconception. What we think consciousness is. The common assumption is that consciousness is what the brain does, that if you understand the brain well enough, consciousness will be explained as a consequence. This assumption drives most neuroscience research. It produces remarkable results. We can identify which neurons fire when you recognize a face. We can predict with reasonable accuracy whether you are about to make a decision before you are consciously aware of having made it. We can disrupt or alter conscious experience by stimulating specific brain regions. This is the easy problem of consciousness. It is not actually easy. It is extraordinarily complex, but it is tractable. It is the kind of problem that more research, better technology, and better theory can solve. In 1995, philosopher David Chalmers drew a distinction that changed how serious thinkers approach this field. He separated the easy problems of consciousness, explaining how the brain processes information, integrates sensory data, controls attention and behavior, from what he called the hard problem. The hard problem is this: why does any of this processing feel like anything? When light hits your retina and your visual cortex processes it as red, why is there a redness to the experience? Why is there an experience at all rather than just information processing happening in the dark? The ground floor, Qualia, and the philosophical zombie. Philosophers use the word qualia, the singular is quale, to refer to the subjective, felt qualities of experience, the redness of red, the painfulness of pain, the specific quality of what coffee smells like to you. Here is the part most explanations miss. Qualia cannot be conveyed through information alone. Imagine a scientist called Mary, who has lived her entire life in a black and white room. She has studied everything there is to know about color, the physics of wavelengths, the neuroscience of the visual cortex, every fact that science contains about the experience of seeing red. One day, she walks out of the room and sees a red tomato. Does she learn something new? Most people's intuition is yes. She learns what red actually looks like. And if that intuition is right, it means that all the physical facts about the brain do not capture everything there is to know about conscious experience. There is something left over. Chalmers made this precise with the philosophical zombie thought experiment. Imagine a being physically identical to you in every way. Same neurons, same connections, same behavior, same responses to every stimulus, but with no inner experience whatsoever, no feelings, no qualia. The lights are on, nobody is home. Is such a being conceivable? If yes, if there is no logical contradiction in that idea, then consciousness is not simply identical to physical brain processes. Something extra is required to explain it, and we have no theory of what that something is. The real concept, what the best theories actually say. There are several serious scientific theories of consciousness. None of them is universally accepted. Each has genuine strengths and genuine problems. Integrated information theory, developed by neuroscientist Giulio Tononi, proposes that consciousness is identical to integrated information, a property he calls phi. The more a system integrates information in a way that cannot be decomposed into independent parts, the more conscious it is. This theory makes specific mathematical predictions. It also implies that simple systems like thermostats have a tiny but non-zero amount of consciousness, a conclusion many find uncomfortable. Global workspace theory, associated with Bernard Baars and Stanislas Dehaene, proposes that consciousness arises when information is broadcast widely across the brain, made available to many different systems simultaneously. This explains why some brain processes are conscious and others are not. It is well supported by experimental evidence. Critics argue it explains the easy problems well, but does not address the hard problem at all. It explains which information becomes conscious, but not why it feels like anything. Predictive processing, associated with Carl Friston, proposes that the brain is essentially a prediction machine, constantly generating models of the world and updating them based on sensory input. Consciousness, on this view, is something like the brain's current best model of itself. This is a powerful framework that many researchers find compelling. It does not yet fully explain qualia. The frontier, the problem that may not be solvable. In 2023, the field reached a rare public moment of honesty. A group of 25 leading consciousness researchers signed what became known as the New York Declaration, a statement acknowledging that the science of consciousness had failed to converge on any explanation of the hard problem despite decades of research. This was not a fringe position. The signatories included researchers who had dedicated their careers to major theories of consciousness. They were acknowledging publicly that the field was stuck. Some researchers, including philosopher Philip Goff, have argued that the problem may require accepting a form of panpsychism, the view that consciousness, or proto-conscious properties, are fundamental features of reality the way mass and charge are fundamental. This is not mysticism. It is a serious philosophical position, taken seriously by serious people, because the alternatives have failed. The hard problem may be genuinely hard in a way that means current science cannot solve it, not because we lack data, but because the concepts we are using may be the wrong ones. The question of why you are experiencing this moment, why there is something it is like to be you right now, does not have a scientific answer. And here is where this connects to something else entirely. The same machinery that makes you conscious, the same pattern-detecting, meaning-making, experience-generating brain, is also the reason humans see faces in clouds, hear voices in static, and reach for explanations that go beyond what the evidence supports. On Hard Truth Science, we look at that directly. Why our brains want to believe in the unbelievable, and what that tells us about the nature of mind itself. Actually Science. Complex science, actually explained. Follow us on YouTube at Actually Science Theo.